Anyone else over these yet? No? Okay. Right. First off, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. Best in-slot talent on an AR for striker builds. We're going to have a striker builds today. What is the best talent you can use? Whatever one you want. Honestly, I am genuinely a firm believer in this. The difference between high-end and striker builds is just nutty. And on that example, I equated in strained at maximum stacks or its maximum average on the high-end build, and on the striker builds, I didn't even put a talent on the weapon, so it can go higher. With this in mind though, for me personally, I find strikers lacks a lot of utility. It's the main difference, other than the DPS, the main difference between Heartbreaker and strikers is just utility. Strikers' utility is all in maximum Unga Bunga DPS. If you're unable to maintain that, there's not much point in running strikers. This is also why I feel like putting blue calls on strikers is just... yeah, we'll just leave that there before someone gets upset. Now, with that utility in mind, pretty much whatever talent you want to go for is going to work, minus a few. Now, despite the fact that I'm saying minus a few, it's more just because some just don't actually do anything. The main culprit here is measured. I've done about 30 videos alone on measured plus measured with strikers. You don't gain stacks any faster simply just because you get a increase in fire rate at the start of your mag, because by the end of the mag it completely balances out. You will gain the exact same amount of stacks at the exact same rate as you will not running measured, along with the fact that if you're going to run a damage talent, there are plenty of other damage talents that will give you more damage than the 2% that measured will give you. So yeah, measured is not worthwhile categorically in any way, shape or form outside of Oxy builds or PvP. And I add PvP in there loosely because you can actually outperform it very easily with other talents. Anyway, if you're going to go for an increase in damage, use something like Optimist, which works out to be like 10 to 20%, depending if you're going for head or body shot. Or go for Strained, which is like 25% an increase in damage. Like, there are so many better options if you're going to go for an increase in damage. And if you're going to go for utility, sorry to say, not much beats Future Perfect or Preservation. Yeah. Anyway, we're just going to jump straight into the builds. I'm going to do no wordy stuff over the top like this, because on striker builds, that's literally all it's going to say. Okay, we should at this point all already know that strikers is probably going to be the highest DPS possible for ARs and probably the best in slot overall for ARs, just because of how strikers works. So let's just look at builds. Right, up first we have Dod-Foamath. As you can see, I've not included a talent. I'm not including talents in any of these calculations. Dod-Foamath, Coyotes, 4P strikers, and the Grupo Ceska with Obliterate, or pretty much the exact same thing, but we're going to be running a Ceska chest with Obliterate. The difference between these is basically negligible, and I see it on both sides all the time what one is actually better. And the answer is, what range are you playing at? That's literally the answer. See, where Ceska is going to be at 60% crit chance, but it's going to be missing out on 15% critical hit damage. It will supplement this by use of Coyote's Mask. So if you're within 15 meters, Ceska wins. Grupo, on the other hand, is at 50% crit chance and has 15% more critical hit damage. But if you're at 15 to 25 meters, you supplement your crit chance with Coyote's Mask, therefore meaning if you're at 15 meters to 25 meters, Grupo wins. Now, personally for me, just because when you do close versus mid, at close Ceska wins by 2 to 3%, but at mid, Grupo wins by 3 to 5%. Because that difference is more in Grupo's favour, I personally would say that Grupo will beat Ceska. However, It really is dependent on the range that you find yourself playing at most often, and being the fact that range is not something that you are always in control of, it's more up to the enemy and when they feel like pushing or how far they feel like pushing. It's really a pointless argument. They're both basically identical depending on how you are playing. Now, these spreadsheets are going to be quite large, but it's literally perfect glass cannon build as our high end, and then Ceska Grupo at 0, Ceska Grupo at half, Ceska Grupo at full, and these are the DPS. So as you can see, with 0 stacks, both Ceska and Grupo are doing 60 to 64%, and then at half stacks, Grupo's doing 91 to 92, Ceska is doing 95, and then at full stacks, they're both doing over 20% each. Now, for these calculations, I kept it simple. They're all calculated at close range. Before you start going, aha, look, Ceska's doing more. We've already established that close range, Ceska will do more. Just to keep it simple for me, I just did all of them at close range. Up next is a build that can do this with the minigun. They were legendary enemies, by the way. But yeah, this is the build I'm running in this current footage. 4P strikers, contractors, foxes with a FAMAS, 56 crit hit chance, 93 crit hit damage. You can go for this, which gets you to 6147. Or if you don't have coyotes, you can go for Ceska Grupo. This is the weaker of the three. If you are playing within close range, the Ceska Coyotes wins. However, the moment you lose your close range, Contractors Foxes completely wins. This is the most stable in terms of DPS. It doesn't really matter what range you're playing at. So if you're doing it as solo legendary, I suggest Contractors Foxes. If you're playing in a group, I would suggest Coyotes. Now, this again is going to be a very large spreadsheet because we're comparing them all at 0, half, and then full stacks. The problem with this build is getting it to full stacks from the off. So strikers C plus BP is Contractors Foxes, C plus BP2 is Ceska Grupo, and then C plus BP Coy is Ceska with Coyote's Mask. Now, although on this spreadsheet it does show Ceska and Grupo slightly edging out Foxes Contractors, however, I promise you Foxes and Contractors will win, simply because the only place where this build is actually viable is in Legendary, and trust me, the moment you see a Wally or a Chunga or a Warhound, you'll wish you were going with the Contractors Foxes variant, simply just because of the multipliers. Although Contractors aren't going to be doing much against them because they're health targets, it then becomes best in slot to make up the extra damage that you would otherwise be missing against everything else. Right, this video is mostly going to be ending here. I am not done with striker builds. There's just a lot to go over with striker builds, and considering you guys wanted it in like 10-minute-ish chunks, this one's ending here for now. I've still got to do pristine example builds, and then I've got to go over some weird, wacky alternatives with strikers, simply because, technically speaking, Perfect Glass Cannon is still best in slot because DPS. However, where strikers lack so much utility, going for something like Glass Cannon or Perfect Glass Cannon is mostly null and void for two reasons. One, the aforementioned utility. We don't want to be losing that much utility and be taking 60% more damage, 50, 60%. Two, we can near enough get identical damage, well, in most cases actual identical damage, by using things like Obliterate. Obliterate will be slower because you have to stack it. Yes, you can stack very quick, but Glass Cannon is instant. So there will be a few weird builds coming out with Glass Cannon involved. However, I'm not going to be recommending them. They're just simply best in slot in DPS only, not in playability, but there might be one mad lad among you that's like, actually, yeah, that seems like a really good idea. Also, technically speaking, Perfect Glass Cannon with a Providence backpack is going to give you more DPS than what the Striker's backpack is actually capable of, but you are going to be absolutely suffering in terms of damage taken. But anyway, have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.